I'm not 100% involved every single day. We are putting, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional a little bit.
Some of us, if something's not right, then, you know, we're not going to sleep that tonight. You know what I mean? If something's not right, I'm not going to sleep. So we're going to get it straightened out.
You're not just carrying the dreams of a particular company and agency, but of the entire world.
Both Boeing and NASA are doing something right now, not just for the benefit of a private company like Boeing, not just for an agency like NASA. They're doing this on behalf of the nation for the benefit of mankind.
This is human spaceflight. We've got people, we've got teammates and colleagues that are going to fly in this vehicle. We need to make sure that we get them there safely and we get them back safely. I'd fly it every time if I could.
There's no point to any of this, to commercial human spaceflight, if we don't make sure our crew is safe.
Nobody understands this. I don't think anybody really outside of this business understands what we're doing.
These spacecraft are hand-built from the ground up. I mean, we don't even use power tools on them.
Any little piece means something important. You don't know what you don't know. And it's just a lessons learned and keeping your eyes and ears open.
Everybody watches everybody else. You have to. You can't make mistakes. There is no room for error.
I've heard people say, would you make that decision with Chris's wife in the room? And the answer is always yes.
You got to put in 110% every day, you know, and take time from our families to make sure that he can come home to his.
Our grass is tall at home and our kids are looking for us, but I'm building a spaceship to get back to a spaceship that I made already.
You can't tweak something when you're up there. You can only do it one time. I know what I've done is a pretty good job.
I might not be riding on it, but I'm right there with him.
Launch is going to be a great day, but that's just the start for us. When we see it land and everybody's safe, that's going to be really when we do the high fives.
Now some of those people are sitting in the BMCC. You're looking at them right now on console. They should be about to enter their final pull.
And the Boeing launch teams have reported out from the control room on the hardware readiness. That signaled that Starliner is ready for that terminal count.
And Tori's been keeping tabs on their progress. Tori, how are the final Starliner pulls going?
Thanks, Josh. The final Starliner pulls are going excellent. We actually just heard all the engineering teams go through their final pull and say that they are go and green for launch. So everything here out of the BMCC is looking great. We have everybody really tied in and they're ready for that terminal count. Now, we have a message for you at home from the woman who named Rosie the Riveter. Rocketeer.
Hi everyone, I'm Leanne Corrett. I'm thrilled to be here today at Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex inside the Astronaut Hall of Fame, surrounded by the heroes and legends that have inspired the work we're doing here today. My parents actually met while working on the Saturn V program, and I was born right here on Florida's Space Coast. Like many of you, I'm inspired by the wonder of space exploration, and it's humbling to be part of this moment in history. We're so proud that Starliner is the very first human spacecraft to be built and launched right here in Florida. Thank you to all the teams across the country and as far away as Australia who designed, built, and tested Starliner. And thank you to NASA. We've been a proud NASA partner since the earliest days of space exploration, and I can't wait to see what we'll accomplish together in the years ahead. I want you to know that space is not the final frontier, it's just the next one. Thanks to Starliner, getting there will be safe, efficient, and attainable. Thank you for watching our show, and enjoy the launch.
Now, Leanne is probably one of the people most excited about this. Whenever you talk to space about her, her eyes just light up. So we're all hoping for a great launch. We actually just got confirmation that they are configuring Starliner for the terminal count. We are all go right now. If you are just joining us, we're minutes away from Starliner's first launch attempt.
And ULA will be getting ready soon to begin its poll to enter the terminal count. Right now we're about 16 minutes from liftoff.
Now this is a critical point in the countdown. After the launch clock restarts at T-minus 4 minutes, if another hold is called, we will scrub for the day.
Hold on countdown 1. Status checks proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion, go. Hydraulics, go. Pneumatics, go. LO2, go. Water, go. Centaur systems, propulsion, go. Pneumatics, go. LO2, go. LH2, go. Has gas, go. Electrical systems, airborne, go. Ground, go. Anomaly chief, AC is go. Range coordinator, clear to proceed. Launch director. Launch director is go, and you have permission to launch.
The countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
We have a few minutes now to answer more of your questions about Starliner. We have one from Ingram, wants to know, you have certain weight concerns, obviously, so how do you take into account the weight of the paint used on Starliner?
So, of course, every pound matters on a spacecraft, and that's why we didn't use too much paint that we don't need. If you can, tell on the vehicle, there's some style paintings on there, the NASA logo, the Boeing logo, those kind of cool dash marks around the top. But that's the only paint that, Starliner doesn't need. That gray paint covering is actually there for thermal properties. You might remember if you've been following Starliner for a while, it used to be white. But as we continued our analysis, we decided that gray would be a little better and safer on re-entry, so we covered it up with this special gray paint that is very heat resistant.
Yeah, and you can see it well. It's really early in the morning. The sun's not up yet, but you can tell that kind of color on the capsule at the top of the rocket on the pad there.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually making use of thermal blankets. The gray part is thermal blankets that you might remember from the space shuttle, and the little black parts are thermal tiles, also from the space shuttle. But we have a brand new heat shield on the bottom.
I think we have time for one more question. So we also got another interesting question about the G forces. Moonman wanted to ask about the max loads expected during ascent, and then will the booster throttle down to maintain those lower Gs?
So that's actually a great question. ULA is flying a very unique trajectory for us. It's going to fly flatter, as Moonman said, and the booster will actually throttle down during the later stages of flight. To maintain 3.5 Gs on the crew members. The crew access arm is about to retract. I thought it was retracting there. But yeah, so Atlas will fly a little different flight than it's normally used to for us today, but 3.5 Gs is not uncomfortable for the crew. It's safe for them. Chris Ferguson has described it still kind of feels like a gorilla sitting on your chest, but that's...
It's a colorful description.
It's about normal for most launches.
And we want you to keep those questions coming. Thank you for all the great questions. Just remember to use the hashtag AskNASA. And we're standing by now, keeping an eye on Space Launch Complex 41, waiting for that crew access arm to begin its retraction. And when that happens, we will start to see the arm swing away. We'll see the white room slowly move away from Atlas. And that's going to be one of the last visible things that we'll see ahead of launch.
So up to this point, if there were crew on board, right before the crew access arm moves is where we'd configure the launch abort system. We'll see it slowly kind of move away, but it can actually swing back to the capsule in under 20 seconds for a less urgent emergency, like if there were a lightning storm coming and the crew had to get off the pad. But really, after that access arm goes away, if they need to get off, they're gonna leave on Starliner.
And Josh, you mentioned the abort system. I know that's not active on this flight. Can you help explain to people why?
Yeah, so ULA has this new emergency detection system on the top of their Centaur upper stage. It's basically 2 extra computers that are plugged into the rest of the rocket, and they are just really making sure that that system is going to work. We don't want to cause a premature abort, since this is the first time that system's on Atlas. But that system is looking for what's called fast trigger aborts. So those are something that will happen so quickly that a human wouldn't be able to detect it.
Mm-hmm. And so we're going to see that, of course, is going to be activated. The next time Starliner flies, that next flight's going to be called the crew flight test, and that will carry Boeing astronaut Chris Ferguson, NASA astronauts Mike Fink and Nicole Mann, and they will be next time sitting right on top of that Atlas-V inside Starliner. But for today, of course, we've got Rosie inside, Snoopy inside, and that's 600 pounds of NASA cargo, and we are a little over 11 minutes away from launch now. Again, just standing by because we want to make sure you get to see see live that crew access arm swinging away. So we're just keeping an eye on things for you.
There you can see Centaur venting. That's completely normal for these launches. It's very cold liquid hydrogen and oxygen that are in that fuel tank, and as they heat up, they start to expand and vent out the top there.
Minus 11 minutes.
Arm control, stow the crew access arm for launch. Roger.
There, we just heard the call that they're about to stow that crew access arm. We've also got confirmation that Starliner is running on internal power. It is not relying on ground power anymore, pulling power from its own batteries.
If you're just joining us, we're just over 10 minutes from liftoff, and we are, oh, there it is. It looks like the crew access arm is beginning to move away from Starliner. You can see the white room ever so slightly starting to make its swing.
Again, this is one of the last major steps. The next is the launch vehicle pull. Then we will release the 4-minute hold, and then we're ready for launch.
CST-100 on internal power.
Verified.
Now as that crew access arm retracts, again, the final pull for today is the launch vehicle pull. If you've watched Atlas launches, it will sound very familiar. There's a big old piston pulling back that crew access arm.
And after Atlas is declared ready for launch, NASA and Boeing will jointly decide whether they're going to move forward with the countdown.
Again, about 9 minutes away from launch.
All right, and there you see the crew access arm just finishing its swing away from the Atlas-V rocket and Starliner, and we want to go over to Dylan Rice in the ASOC for a status update. Dylan?
Hey Marie, so we're continuing to have a very clean countdown here. We're just a few moments away now from Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo conducting that terminal count status check poll, which will take us into our final countdown to launch. That terminal count status check poll is the final check from each operators associated with the ground systems, the launch vehicle, the spacecraft, and the Eastern Range to ensure that all systems are ready to go for us to proceed into a terminal count and get the rocket launched. So we're just about a minute away from that now, and I can tell you that we've executed this countdown many times for a variety of different missions, but the countdown today feels quite a bit different than what we've normally done. The excitement here is just unbelievable, and we are very, 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 very excited to see this mission go and go on time, especially with such a clean countdown like we've had today. So we're really looking forward to this. The team has not been talking any issues at all on any of the other nets that I've been listening to. So when that terminal count status check starts, we're expecting to hear goes across the board. So I think we'll stand by here and listen for Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo to get that poll started here in about 20 seconds, I think.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion, go. Hydraulics, go. Pneumatics, go. LO2, go. Water, go. Centaur systems, propulsion, go. Pneumatics, go. LO2, go. LH2, go. Has gas, go. Electrical systems, airborne, go. Ground, go. Facility, go. RFFTS, go. Flight control, go. GCQ, go. Op support.
Go.
Comm.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
Arm control.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Flight director.
Flight is go.
Launch director.
LD is go, and LC, you have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC, verify T0 is set for 11:36:43 Zulu.
Verified.
Well, Josh, Marie, you heard it. We are go for launch, right on time.
All right, thanks, Dylan. Yeah, we heard some cheers behind us over at the press site when we heard that you have permission to launch. And I know they're feeling good about that over in the Boeing Mission Control Center. Tori's standing by over there, and we're hearing she's got a very special guest to say hello.
Thanks, Marie. Yes, I do have a very special guest here today. I have Chris Ferguson, first Boeing astronaut and former space shuttle commander. So, Chris, you heard the poll. You were here, being part of some of the other polls this morning. Can you tell us how it's going?
Well, every launch has its exciting moments. We had a few earlier with a minor issue that came up, but we've developed all the necessary rationale to go flying. And you just listen to the poll. Basically, everybody is in line and in agreement that we're in a good configuration to go fly. So it was a little close, but hey, we're going to be off to the races here in a few short minutes.
I know this is a really exciting time, right? Less than 5 minutes here until launch. So, it's funny when we say we're less than 5 minutes to launch, but I know that you've been on the program for about 8 years now. So. All of this, I know, has been leading up to this moment and to CFT. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role within the Starliner program?
I joined the program about, like you said, 8 years ago, shortly after the space shuttle program ended, and it's been wonderful to be a part of the team. It's been wonderful to have some influence in the design. And now, it's almost surreal. There it is out on the pad. The labor of the last 8.5 years is sort of coming to, it's game day, right? The big test is, and mind you, our big game, right, for the spacecraft actually begins when the launch vehicle releases us 11 minutes from now. So we've got a lot of work to do, even though this is the exciting part that everybody enjoys watching the launch. Our big test really begins when the launch vehicle sort of releases us, and we have to go, perform all the necessary demonstrations to get ready to dock to the International Space Station tomorrow. So we've got a busy 24 hours.
Yeah, Chris, that is really exciting, right? It's busy, but I know the teams here are up for the challenge.
Absolutely.
All right, Josh, Marie, thanks for coming to us. Back to you.
Well, it was great hearing from Chris. We are 3 minutes and 20 seconds away. The T-minus 4 minute hold was released while Chris was telling us about how excited he is for Starliner. So we are going to quiet down, listen into the loops. I want to note that on ascent, because we have so many control rooms, you will be hearing reports from the Atlas Space Flight Operations Center, from JSC, and Marie and I will stick around.
Securing LO2 topping.
Atlas tanks to flight pressure.
2 minutes, 50 seconds.
FTS internal.
Two and a half minutes. Atlas tanks are at flight levels. Centaur will be momentarily.
If you're just joining us, we're approaching 2 minutes from the very first flight of Boeing CST-100 Starliner to the International Space Station.
159.
Vehicle internal.
155.
Block sequencer start.
150. Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
There's the rocket is now on internal power as well. Both Atlas and Centaur
140.
tanks.
Launch enabled.
137.
FTS armed?
That was the flight termination software. If Atlas veers off course.
$120.
OC is armed.
SCS count started, EDS ascent mode.
That was that emergency detection system, EDS.
T-minus 1 minute.
Rock, report range status.
Range green. 54.
BLP started.
Thirty seconds.
T-minus 25 seconds.
Status check.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur. Go Starliner.
Go Starliner. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. The rise of Starliner and a new era in human spaceflight.
The tower. Now 10 seconds into flight. Vehicle's begun the pitch over program. Body rate responses look good. Now 15 seconds in. VU's got a little bit of control. Already went in, looks good at full thrust. Seeing good chamber pressure on both SRBs. Now 26 seconds into flight. Already 180 now throttling down to partial thrust as expected. Engine response looks good. Now 38 seconds in. Already 180 engine operating parameters continue to look good. Vehicle is now passing through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. Chamber pressures on both SRBs continue to look good. RD-180 engine operating parameters also continue to look good. Now passing 1 minute into flight. And Mach 1, Atlas-V is now supersonic. And vehicle now throttling up. Engine response looks good. Continue to see good chamber pressure on both SRBs. 1 minute, 20 seconds into flight. Body rate responses on the vehicle look good. 1 minute, 30 seconds in, standing by for SRB burnout. And we have burnout on both solid rocket boosters. Atlas will hold on to the SRBs for an additional 48 seconds prior to jettison. RD-180 has gone back up to full thrust as expected. Engine response looks good. 1 minute, 50 seconds in. Atlas is now 17 miles in altitude, 11.5 miles downrange distance, traveling at 2,300 miles per hour. Now passing 2 minutes into flight. RD-180 engine operating parameters continue to look good at full thrust. And at 2 minutes, 11 seconds into flight, the Atlas rocket now weighs just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at a rate of 2,800 pounds per second. And we've seen good indication of jettison of both solid rocket boosters. Vehicle's gone to closed loop guidance. Now just under 2 minutes remaining in the booster phase of flight. 2 minutes, 35 seconds into flight. RD-180 continues to perform well. Engine's now throttling down slightly. Engine response looks good. And Atlas-V is now traveling at over 5 times the speed of sound. Centaur reaction control system is now pressurizing to flight levels. System response looks good. Three minutes, 10 seconds into flight. Atlas-V is now 38 miles in altitude, 80 miles downrange distance, traveling at 5,800 miles per hour. RD-180 engine operating parameters continue to look good. Now 1 minute remaining until engine cutoff. Body rate responses continue to look good throughout the booster phase of flight. And RD-180 is now throttling to maintain a constant 3.5 G acceleration limit. Engine responses will all look good. Three minutes, 55 seconds into flight. And Centaur's begun the boost phase chill down sequence. 20 seconds to BECO. RD-180 continuing to look good as it throttles to maintain that constant 3.5 G acceleration limit. Atlas PU has gone to open loop in preparation for BECO. And standing by for BECO. And we have BECO booster engine cutoff, standing by for stage separation. And we have good indication of stage separation. We have pre-start on the RL-10, standing by for ignition. We have ignition and full thrust on both RL-10 engines. Chamber pressures look good on both engines.
We have confirmation of ascent cover jettison on Starliner.
Aeroskirt jettison. And we have good indication of aeroskirt jettison. Centaur now resuming active attitude control after successful aeroskirt jettison. Chamber pressures on both RL-10 engines continue to look good.
This was a very critical piece of the mission here. Staging is always a very dynamic piece of flight.
Now passing 5 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. And the Centaur RCS system is beginning the initial thruster firings for system thermal conditioning. System response looks good.
Now once again, Centaur will continue
Engine propellant utilization
burning for about another 5 minutes.
Now passing 6 minutes into flight. And Centaur is now 95 miles in altitude, 570 miles downrange distance, traveling at 12,000 miles an hour.
Those dual RL-10 engines continue to propel Starliner. They are making up for a little bit of the booster flying a flatter trajectory and at lower thrust, again to maintain that 3.5 G forces. Again, a first flight for the dual-engine Centaur on an Atlas-V. Starliner and Centaur continue to head to orbit.
Throughout this Centaur burn, chamber pressures have remained very stable. Just under 5 minutes now remaining in the burn. And Centaur is now 102 miles in altitude, 800 miles downrange distance, traveling at 12,700 miles per hour. And the Centaur propellant utilization system continuing with active control looks good. Body rate responses are all very close to null.
That means Atlas is flying almost exactly where it needs to be.
Periodic thruster firings as expected. Now passing 8 minutes into flight.
If you are just joining us, 8 minutes into Starliner's first flight. We've been through a successful booster stage separation. Centaur continues to propel Starliner. The next major milestone will be main engine cutoff at 11 minutes and 58 seconds.
Both Centaur RL-10 engines are continuing to perform well throughout the burn. Chamber pressures look good. And now coming up on 9 minutes into flight, Centaur is 101 miles in altitude, 1,200 miles downrange distance, traveling at 14,300 miles per hour.
Now the two control rooms you are looking at on the left, that is ULA's Denver Operations Control Center. They are a backup control room for the control room on the right, which is the actual Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center. They were the ones who launched the rocket about 9.5 minutes ago.
Now close to bottle temperatures.
As you can see, everyone is locked in on their screens monitoring data. You might have noticed there wasn't much excitement during launch, but ULA will be happy once we get to stage separation, which is coming up almost 15 minutes after launch, so about 5 minutes from now.
Centaur system performance remains nominal throughout this burn, continuing to see stable values on our fuel and oxidizer tank pressures, main vehicle battery temperatures and pressures, and continuing to see good pressures on our helium and hydrazine storage bottles. Telemetry quality has been good throughout this burn, only seeing very brief minor dropouts. Now approximately 1 minute remaining in the burn.
So once again, after Starliner separates from Centaur coming up in about 4 minutes, Starliner will circularize its orbit with an orbital insertion burn. Again, about 30 seconds to main engine cutoff.
Chamber pressures on both RL-10s continue to look good.
Now ahead of main engine cutoff, we are seeing good tank pressure on Starliner itself. Batteries are in a nominal temperature, good pressure sensor readings from Starliner as it prepares to free fly for the first time in orbit.
Standing by for main engine cutoff. And we have MECO, main engine cutoff. Body rate responses have remained very stable. Now passing 12 minutes into flight.
Now Starliner will stay attached to Centaur again until about 15 minutes. Expected to separate at 14 minutes and 58 seconds after liftoff. And that will be the first time Starliner free flies in orbit. And at that point, Richard Jones and his team in Houston will have full control over the vehicle. And they will set it up for an orbital insertion burn that will take place 16 minutes after separation.
Approximately 2 minutes now remaining until OFT capsule separation. Body rate responses continue to look very stable throughout this coast.
So you're looking at the Boeing Mission Control Center there. At this point, they have transitioned to a mission support room. The people you're seeing sitting on console designed tested and built Starliner. They are the experts on the systems. So if flight controllers need any help, they will be the ones answering the call.
Now passing 13 minutes, 30 seconds into flight.
Oh, in just over a minute, we're expecting to hear that Starliner has separated from the vehicle.
And about 1 minute now remaining until OFT separation. Body rates in the roll, pitch, and yaw direction, all very close to null. And about 30 seconds away from spacecraft set. Now standing by for spacecraft separation. And we have good indication of separation of the OFT capsule.
There it is. ULA has successfully completed their piece of the mission. Starliner is free flying for the first time in space. From here, the Johnson Space Center mission controllers will be flying Starliner. We will hear reports exclusively from there.
And Starliner's software has been switched to orbit mode, meaning the spacecraft is executing the commands it needs for operating in space following a successful launch into orbit, into the orbital trajectory. This is just one step flight controllers are taking in configuring Starliner now that it's flying on its own. Flight controllers are setting up for the orbital insertion burn, which will take place in about 15 minutes, a little over 15 minutes. And that'll circularize Starliner's orbit as it sets off to chase the International Space Station. The team here is also turning off several systems that were needed for powered flight but are not necessary now that Starliner is in orbit. While some are turned off, others will be turned on, such as the thruster housings that will be used to maneuver Starliner in space, and the solar arrays. The thrusters will steer Starliner through orbit, and the solar arrays will of course convert the sun's energy into electric energy to charge the spacecraft batteries.
The Centaur has intentionally left Starliner in an elliptical trajectory that would make it easy for the spacecraft and, more importantly, its future crews to come back to Earth at this point if there were a problem. But that means it's all on Starliner to make it the rest of the way into a stable orbit and on track for the space station docking. This is where Starliner's orbital maneuvering and attitude control engines come into play. Those 20 engines can provide each up to 1,400 pounds of thrust, which is more than enough to neatly heave Starliner that last little bit into orbit. They'll fire for about 40 seconds, setting Starliner on the right path not only for docking with the space station, but also a series of demonstrations that Starliner will perform before docking.
And those demonstrations will prove that Starliner is ready to safely dock with the space